Hi there. Nice. Oh. Yeah, okay.
That would be okay.
So good. I swear. So good morning.
Hi, Stuart.
Hi, everybody. So we're going to get started shortly, but as you can see, we have some people coming in, so y'all know the drill. Tighten up, get to know someone, get closer to your sister, whatever it is. I don't even know why I'm getting a mat out. I never do this. What am I teaching?
I don't know.
Which class is this? Is this yin? Yes.
I'm not supposed to talk. And that's it.
Exactly.
I'm going to try to reserve my comments.
Yeah, please. Sorry. Morning, Dorothea. How are you? Hey. Hi. Well, I swear I've got for 1 week done blues geometry. No. Let's see. We got room. Oh. Well, that's just deeply distressing, but I'm going to be okay with it today. That angle thing is going to drive me insane, but I will be cold. All right.
So I don't want to be in.
Don't worry. No one will see you.
Awful.
Well, the nice thing is that if you're on camera, they'll have someone else to troll other than me. So this funny thing that I discovered. Hi, everybody. Hi, welcome to Yin. And even those who didn't even really want to go to Yin this morning, welcome. I appreciate being your second choice. And now only, right? Just proving the theory that if I were the last yoga class on earth, you'd still show up. So anyway, so we'll begin with introductions as we so often do. We're going to start with Sadhana over in the corner.
Phil. Beth. Tracy. Debbie. Beth. Sue. Andrea.
Oh.
Tanya. Gail. Karen. Maria. Mandy. Jim.
David.
Toby. Alice. Bev.
Marley.
Teresa.
Linda.
And now over here.
Wendy.
Sarah.
Dawn.
Bill.
Lisa. Dorothea.
Tanny.
And I'm Stuart. Are you enjoying the sunlight? Okay, good. So so a couple of announcements just before we get started with the fun and frivolity of Yin today. So as it turns out, I did not know this. I don't know why. It's probably because I don't go all the way to the bottom to our instructor emails. So next week, which is Easter Sunday, evidently, who knew? It seems like every class is canceled and replaced with resurrection-themed classes. And I mean that quite literally. So evidently there's like a 6:15 resurrection class, and then a 7:15 resurrection class, then an 8:15 Easter egg hunt hatha yoga class, and bunny hop. So the egg roll and bunny hop part is a lie, but 8:15 there will be a hatha class. Yeah. So in an interesting turn of events, a yoga studio with a distinct emphasis on non-Western culture cancels its classes for Easter. It's one of those things where you're just like, yeah, we're definitely, really this is about the gift shop. I'm just telling you that all now, right? Please buy your chakra oils, your singing bowls, your Om, and your Om Namah Shivaya bracelet, and enjoy your Easter. Thanks very much. Phil. We have a class called Buddha Belly Be Gone. I mean, ask yourself this question. I can assure you that a resurrection class will undoubtedly involve lying down and getting up. But past that. Past that, I couldn't tell you.
You are not teaching one of them?
No. No. So, no.
You're taking Easter off.
Apparently. As are most of you, apparently, too. So so I think, I know that the 7:15 is a yoga nidra.
Don't look at me.
So you actually, in yoga nidra, you can get up without actually leaving the floor. Because it's all about visualization, right? So anyway, so 6:15, right, resurrection. 7:15, resurrection while staying asleep. 8:15, resurrection with warrior poses. Sun salutations will undoubtedly be themed as the SON salutation. And you may move a stone and find something's empty. So I mean, other than that, I don't know. I just don't know. Can't tell you. Yeah. Meanwhile, back in Buddhism. So what that would mean is, just practically speaking for all of you, what that means is you only have 2 classes with dragon pose in it, which seems to be like actually something to be grateful for. Yeah. So
I think we should continue the theme into next month.
Okay, well, you're at the front of the room, and everyone hates you now. No, so we're working on, so this month, so for those of you who are not normally in this class, this is usually the way it is. And then we have major, then we levitate halfway through. So the theme that we've been working on this month is spleen and stomach, right? And that is the ideas of nurturing and nourishment, and also the idea of spleen in the traditional Chinese medicine model. Spleen is responsible for keeping everything in place. So as an organ, the spleen is responsible for uplifting the body so that everything related to the idea of being ordered and in place and held securely is about the spleen. And so what we're going to do, because it is a little bit of a short month, and the next month, for those of you who've been coming since January where we started these themes, is about the arms. We may do a little bit of sort of crossover. So we'll maybe continue. Maybe that's a wise idea, actually. So I give you full credit for that. Free class. 5 points for Gryffindor. So let's get started, though, just because, this is our last class of the month, and we got things to do. Tammy is taking notes today. She's normally a student, but today she's just going to observe and judge us all from a new vantage point. She's been told she can't talk. I want you all to appreciate this. This is Tammy, my good friend, now rendered silent. This happens once. This happens. You broke the vow. Out of the ashram. So let's begin finding ourselves in a comfortable and dignified seated posture. And welcome to everyone joining us on Periscope. Troll away. So beginning by finding the sitting bones connected to the floor through the mat, and metaphorically seeing the floor as the earth. And so feeling that connection, the strength of the legs, grounded into the supportive quality of the earth underneath us. And then from that supported base, rising up, first to the abdomen, you might say, in a sense, resurrecting your spine, one vertebrae at a time. I sense a theme. So feeling that length and that dignity. We oftentimes talk about this dignity within the context of Dag Hammarskjöld's quote, "The only kind of dignity which is genuine is that which is undiminished by the indifference of others." And yet at the same time, the dignity we're cultivating is not a hard or distant quality. It's not standoffish. In fact, it's very open. It's very warm. It is self-generating, so it can admit everything around us with some equanimity. And so finding that quality in the body, that length, that openness, and strength, internal strength. And then opening with the bow, we take the hands to the hip crease, allowing the spreading of the elbows wide to create more openness in the chest and strength in the back, increasing and expanding that circumference of dignity around us. And on the exhale, slowly bowing forward. And coming back up. So opening up the seated posture to come into butterfly. Our souls will come together. And from here, lengthening out, reaching forward from the cave of the pelvis, and slowly drawing ourselves forward and down. See, this is how you get a resurrection class, people. Just keep using language. And we come down into a forward bend. I could do this all morning. And come down into the forward bend, finding ourselves opening up through the hips. And if you are newer to this practice, then the sensation we're going for here is a dull ache in predominantly the inner thighs and meeting points of the thigh bones, the femurs and the pelvis. Perhaps also in the low back. It's a sustainable, persistent ache. And we relax and breathe here. And contemplating and working with the first of the three questions, which is, am I here now? again, if we're a longtime student, recalling that this question is really about the awareness of our innate capacity to return to the present moment from our tendency to wander, to distract ourselves. If you're newer to the practice, then using this question as a touchstone when you return from wandering. So you're in the posture and you get distracted by a sensation, a noise, the inherent boredom of sitting in a posture. You wander off, and then all of a sudden something brings you back, and we acknowledge that by asking the question, am I here now? And we affirm the question with a yes. I am here now. Recognizing that we are doing nothing more than simply strengthening our innate desire to be awake and aware in our own lives. And again, if you're newer to the practice, we end each posture with 3 chimes and the 3 questions repeated. And then on the third one, we come up and out of the pose. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? And you'll slowly come up, pause with the spine vertical, feeling the quality of the low back and the continued sensation in the hips before we open up the pose and come onto our abdomens for Sphinx. So coming down to the forearms and allowing the elbows to be arranged such that the spine is in a gentle back bend. The sensation here located predominantly in the low back. And if that is too intense, then the elbows shift forward. And if that's not intense enough, then from elbows under the shoulders, we begin to straighten the arms. Turning the fingertips outwards, perhaps, to help open the shoulders. And we hold in Sphinx pose. The head and neck can relax. The body gently receiving the benefits of the back bend, and our attention turning to the second question, can I feel what's going on in my body? So drawing our attention with this question to the ability to feel the body rather than to think about the feeling. Another way of saying this is that we release narratives and try to connect more and more to the raw, unlabeled sensations. Our tendency is oftentimes to view sensation as a precursor to some next event or next outcome. Instead, we just stay with sensation as it is, experiencing it without expectation or future thinking. I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So please come down out of the pose. Allowing a moment or two for the sensation in the spine to dissipate. And then from here, keeping your head oriented as it is, just rotating onto the spine. And starting with the knees bent, we'll take the knees over to the collective left towards the entry side of the room. And if you'd like, slowly extending your right arm up overhead, getting a little bit more stretch to the side body. Now, if this is too much, you can always drop, or rather lift the top knee away from the bottom, the right knee away from the left. Or you can hook the ankle of the left knee on the outside of the right if you need more sensation. So engaging in twist. Full and complete opening of the torso and the hips. And settling into the third question, which is, can I relax around that sensation? So the first question establishes really our attention at the present moment, allowing us to experience the second and third, which are, in a sense, sort of deeply enmeshed, if not always happening in the same moment, which is we feel something in the body and we have this moment of choice around whether we grasp in with thought, narrative, worry, emotion, however we choose to term it, or we soften around that sensation and we create more space and more vantage point to experience it. We ask the second question because it is honestly worth noting if we are connected enough to our physical body to really feel what's going on in it. And then once we do feel, bringing more space between feeling and thinking about feeling. And we're, in a sense, always coming back, touching into feeling, relaxing, and then inevitably getting distracted, and we begin the cycle again. And that's really the focus of the three-question method, is to affirm our coming back, to connect with our bodies, and to relax around what is arising in our bodies. The ultimate, one of the possible outcomes of this work with the three questions is that we actually begin to feel less on automatic pilot and more engaged with our lives and able to see more of what goes on in our lives as actually workable rather than sort of continuously forcing our hand to act in very specific ways. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? can I relax around that sensation? So let's move back to center. And as we come back to center, oftentimes we need to take a few stretches here. Twisting, often feeling like the most sort of powerful of the 3 spinal positions we use here at the beginning of class. And then if you would please, when you're ready, come to the other side. And again, modifying by either lifting the top arm up, creating more sensation, hooking the bottom ankle, the outside of the top left knee, or lifting the top left knee away from the bottom knee. Finding yourself in the twist. So the 3 questions. It's the foundation of the practice, not intended solely to be a practice done here on the mat, but rather an engaged practice out in our own lives in the world. And the other 2 aspects of the 3-question system, traditional Chinese medicine and Buddhist philosophy, combining these together to create a system of approaching, for the main part, the sort of psychological aspects of our experience, without purporting to be medical or therapeutic in a Western allopathic sense, but rather in a space of self-awareness and self-consideration. And so, you'll hear me in class talk a little bit about our meridian focus, our traditional Chinese medicine focus, which is the spleen and stomach, as I said at the beginning. And really the associated psychological qualities of possessiveness, grasping, and also nurturing and being nurtured. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So come back to center, please, when you're ready. And stretching and releasing after the twists. And as you're ready to, bringing yourself up to seated for the first posture of the main practice. And the first posture will be half saddle pose. So half saddle is done traditionally by, or commonly by drawing the shin bone to the floor and the heel back towards the hip, creating a tug on the quadricep and some potential for strain in the knee. So what we'll do is, if you have any inner knee pain or concerns about your knee doing this, is we will lift up the hips through either blankets, blocks, or both, so that we have more space or more upliftment and less pressure downwards. It is important-ish that this pressure line is created as it relates to the spleen channel. So ideally you would just sit on a higher and higher platform if you needed to. Now, for some, this will be sufficient. For others, there'll be a slight desire to recline backwards. And for some, that desire to recline backwards will be met with a, well, I regret that decision, so you'll come back up. But for some, you can come all the way down to the back and rest. It doesn't matter here if the knee comes off the floor. And so finding your way into saddle pose. The focus being mostly on the quality of the stretch and compression of the upper leg, or rather the line of the leg bent back up through the body and into the torso. So leaning back helps to facilitate that stretch, but it's not mandatory. Recalling that, if you've taken class before, that we now hold the poses for slightly longer, so be conservative rather than adventurous. Feeling free to go deeper by reclining backwards as needed or desired. So in traditional Chinese medicine, one key concept is the meridian lines. These are sort of zones of the body that conduct various essential fluids and energy. And they come in paired sets, yin and yang. And so the spleen is paired with the stomach, the liver with the gallbladder, kidneys with the urinary bladder, for examples. And the spleen line runs from the foot, from the base of the body, up through the body. And the stomach line runs from the top of the body down the back. So our postures are focused on either stretching the front line really up through the quadriceps, through the center line of the body, or stretching the back, contracting the area of the spinal erectors, and stretching the hamstring and calf muscles. And each organ pair has a set of physiological and psychological functions. And we choose to focus here in 3 questions yin on more of the psychological aspects of the organs. And the sort of psychological aspects of the spleen and stomach have to do with a sense of upliftment, nourishment, nurturing. The spleen responsible for keeping everything in place. So in traditional Chinese medicine, anything that relates to prolapse or organs sort of losing their upliftment is a spleen issue. And the stomach, quite literally in Western physiology and in traditional Chinese medicine, the sac that holds and works with food. So we might say that these two organs really bring focus to the ways in which we experience and work with these qualities, as well as the possessiveness and fear that can arise. From this idea of having enough or not having enough. And feeling held together and uplifted, the quality of the spleen. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? Slowly start to come up. And as you open up your leg, slowly, perhaps, experiencing that space of openness, and feeling free to gently massage the knee or the joint generally. Experiencing that dynamic of compression and then opening. And then, taking the other side, shifting the other leg back. And not necessarily being that concerned if there's more or less mobility. It's a natural phenomenon, the imbalance of the body. And then perhaps leaning back. Finding any in-between that works. Holding in half saddle. So for this idea of the stomach and spleen as nurturing and uplifting, there's two sort of counter visuals that we use this month, or for this theme. One is a poem from Saint Teresa of Avila, interpreted through the words of Daniel Ladinsky. A segment of it reads, "The songs of fruits and grains will calm. Why not put them into yourself? A new language you will learn." And this is juxtaposed against this long-standing image from Buddhism and from Eastern culture generally of the hungry ghost. The hungry ghost is a creature that has a large beak, large mouth, very thin throat, a large distended belly, representing, in reverse order, its immense hunger, kind of painful, unsatisfiable, unsatiable hunger and thirst. And this voracious appetite, this desire to consume. But between these two spaces is this incredibly thin throat that can barely receive even the smallest morsel of food or the smallest drop of fluid. And the immense psychological and physical pain that arises from this hunger, this unfulfillable hunger. And so the hungry ghost becomes a symbol of this psychological pain of never having enough. And so in Buddhist philosophy, it's not uncommon to hear these things really understood in the language of pain and of suffering. Whereas in perhaps some Western philosophies, this might be considered drive. We are driven, and that drive is valued in an intense way. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So slowly come up. Take a moment to open up the knee again. Feel that quality of sensation, blood, turning. And then moving in the opposite direction now with swan, or we also know as pigeon pose. And we'll start with whatever leg we feel to be tighter or more restricted, starting by taking that leg's shin bone parallel the front edge of our mat, and then swinging the leg around behind us, the opposite leg around behind us. And for some, we might just swing the leg around and kind of stop with it going and halfway back. Just sitting on the inner thigh. And for some, we might rotate the pelvic bowl so that the hips are now squared and facing forward. And the heel of the front leg will spontaneously pull itself in to accommodate our flexibility. The top of the knee, thigh, and shin on the floor, we may begin to descend forward, moving from back bend to forward bend. And in this position, stretching the top of the leg again in a spleen stimulating position, and then using the back of the body here to work with the stomach. And enjoying the forward bend in sleeping swan or pigeon pose. So we might choose to attend to the ways in which we experience hunger. And the feeling of hunger in not just the physical body, but also in the mental and emotional spaces of the body. This strong tug that can happen and how it manifests for us. Perhaps we use the term lack, or we use the term want, or we use the term need. We talk in terms of resources. If only I had fill in the blank, I could do fill in the blank. So this wanting from the energy of the stomach, this hungry ghost aspect of being a bottomless pit of desires and needs. And the spleen really working to hold us together. And the more we feel held together, the more we feel secure in our own position, our own reality in the world. If you've ever met or had a moment in your own, met someone or had a moment in your own life where you feel like everything is falling apart and falling to pieces, this is a spleen issue. In the sense that this is the quality of the spleen that we're referring to. And that the spleen, when it has this weakened quality and is unable to kind of hold things together, we have this really deep sense of retreating to some patch of land or patch of ideas that we can hold as our own. And so the pain arising from this sense of falling apart and this sense of not being able to have what we need or what we want can be really quite a strong driver. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So if you would please come out of pigeon pose. Take a few minutes, no, not minutes, we don't have that kind of time. Take a moment or two to stretch. And then, once you're ready to, switching sides. Perhaps hoping that you made the right choice with the first one. And that it's not the opposite leg that's going to give you trouble. But flipping yourself around and finding your way into sleeping swan, aka pigeon pose. Finding your way in a comfortable way. So when we're faced with this psychological hunger and this sense of falling apart, we're really called to become aware of what we bring in to the physical body, to our emotional core, mental self. And so the song of fruits and grains is really this metaphor of getting back to what grounds us, what reinstills us with a sense of being centered. On an entirely practical level, this is the recognition as Janine Roth, who writes a lot about eating disorders and the associated psychological states, what Janine Roth wrote as the title of one of her books, which is When Food is Food and Love is Love. In the sense that when we have a relationship with what we bring in that clearly sees what it is, how it functions, and how it nurtures and nourishes us, or does not. This is not about skipping in and out animal fries and animal style double when you've had a bad day, because that's sometimes real good. Real good. But it's more about recognizing what that is. In many cases, it's really feeding the hungry ghost aspect. Feeding that need that can't be fulfilled through that mechanism. So when faced with these challenges, we try to draw towards us the things that draw us together, that knit us together as an individual. And from that wisdom of drawing up, seeing how we need to nurture and maintain ourselves. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? So please come up and out. Take a moment to stretch. Now dragon pose, quintessential spleen and stomach pose, quintessential pose of hating. So dragon, best that we pad up the knee here. We're going to step the right foot forward into a lunge. Left knee will be on the floor. House rules require that the instructor do the pose with the students. House rules also require that the timer start immediately upon naming what pose we'll do. And because of the relative joy that dragon pose brings to us, we are doing it for slightly less time, which is we're doing it for 3.5 minutes. So finding dragon, finding that this isn't as easy as we thought. We're doing the pose upright here to really emphasize the pull on the front of the thigh. And having done swan pose, facing down, sleeping swan, we're going the opposite direction with the spine. It's not a gateway to Narnia. You can't escape. Can't escape there. This is a posture where you're kind of always able to find that innate capacity to not be here now. Right? I would say that one of the things that come to recognize about this pose is that it is really good, particularly if it's very painful, which it is for me. I don't like this pose very much. Is that it's a good physical representation of the kind of very hot boredom we often have in practice, which is that really sort of driven desire when you're just sitting around doing nothing to really need to entertain yourself. And it's also a good reminder of that kind of physical hunger, that emotional hunger or pain we can experience. But we don't always connect to in a really felt way. One of my teachers, Andre Lapa, talked about doing a fast, and he was trying to work with the physical hunger of eating and not eating. I'm really telling you the story to kind of make the time go by. But that he fasted, and he was like wondering when he should stop fasting. And this wasn't like a week. I mean, he was like 3 days in. And so he proceeded to try and make some food, and he felt this kind of ravenous animal-like quality in him at the idea of eating. And so he didn't eat. He actually stopped making food and eject. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax? Get out. So stretch that out. Good job, people. Make sure everything still works.
One more side.
Yeah, exactly. And now the other side. You know, you can imagine if we were like Hindu gods and goddesses, how many legs we'd have to work with. I mean, we should just be grateful that we have two. And then bringing the other leg forward. Of course, we'll start the timer immediately. And so Andre sort of experienced this arising of this kind of animalistic hunger, and so he decided not to eat. And he kept doing that until there was no driving reaction. And for him, that was a lesson in understanding those drives, those really very kind of primal, very strong drives that we don't even really pay attention to. And so, in that same way, we really can pay attention to that quality of hunger, to that quality of being driven to possess, or using possessing as a way to counter boredom, or to address a sense of lack. And oftentimes people sort of take this to conceptual extremes, like, I don't need anything. I'll have no possessions and just wander the earth, living off universal energy. Sounds very noble, but isn't very realistic. So the question is not so much, do we not have things, but do we have things on the basis of being driven by our hunger, or do we have things on the basis of coming from very held together, very nurtured emotionally, mentally? And that might not change how much we have, but it changes the attitude towards what we have. About 45 more seconds. $30. Am I here now? Can I feel what's going on in my body? Can I relax around that sensation? And slowly come back and out of the pose, stretching it out. And take a moment as you're stretching, particularly with that last question. Well, not really the last one, the second one. Can I feel what's going on in my body? And just note how much maybe the feeling is tinged with the anxiety, the annoyance, the mental formations and emotions around the pose. And then, please come onto your back and we'll rest. So come onto your back first, and the reason why we're going to do this is to really open up the front of the body. Now you're welcome, if the back is uncomfortable, to take onto the abdomen, but when you come to your back, just let your legs go straight for a second and widen. Again, unless you have substantial low back concerns that makes it uncomfortable to be in this position, and just allow the front of your hips, front of your chest, be very open. We're just going to be here for about a minute, and then you're invited to take whatever posture feels restful. And that could mean staying here, it could mean on your side, your stomach, sitting upright. Allowing the remainder of dragon pose to settle. And now, please, if you would, find a comfortable resting posture, if you're not already in one. So Andre's story about hunger and hungry ghost image and songs of fruits and grains, all of these things point to the fact that hunger is not wrong. In other words, the simplistic translation is that we should, only eat when desperately necessary, and we should eat as little as possible to satisfy that hunger. And that moderation can be good practice, of course, but the question is less about the food and more about how we come to that hunger. What is the source of that hunger? Do we know and understand our hunger? You might have had the experience of the disconnect between mental hunger and physical hunger. In the food realm, just by, you become very excited about going out and, having a meal at a certain restaurant or a certain type of food. I really want an X. Then you get that, you have that fulfilled, and then you're still unsatisfied. You're just kind of like, well, that sucked. And that is a very prosaic and very simple example of really asking ourselves if we know our hunger, if we are moving from a space of relaxed awareness and connection, or if we're really being driven by our psychological pain. And we can practice the 3 questions with that hunger. We can begin to become more aware of it and seeing it as it is versus connecting it to something else. So we might say that this new language, St. Teresa of Avila says that we learn, is really this language of awareness, of being able to discriminate between psychological hunger driving us and a physical hunger. A real need compared to a need for a certain appearance or self-perception. So now, from your restful position, begin to cultivate some awareness of your body and then some movement to allow you to eventually move towards seated. And as you come up to seated, reestablishing that dignified posture. And I encourage you, as you take this posture, perhaps it's a practice, just noticing that when you take a dignified posture, does it give rise to a sense of being complete, or do you say to yourself, I really wish I had bought that shirt at Lululemon because I would feel a lot more dignified in silver tech. Right? Or should have worn better pants, or I haven't done my hair. All of those things that just sort of immediately become baggage. Or do you feel uplifted, spacious, whole? And can you expand the circumference of that wholeness out into space? Can you welcome while retaining a sense of being held together? And so we'll take the hands to the hip crease. We close with the aspiration, each aspiration spoken, feeling free to say it out loud yourself, doing this as a group practice. Shine. And again, the aspiration being, may I experience happiness in the root of happiness. May you experience happiness in the root of happiness. May all beings everywhere experience happiness in the root of happiness. So let's begin. May I experience happiness and the root of happiness. May you experience happiness and the root of happiness. May all beings everywhere experience happiness and the root of happiness. Namaste. So thank you, everyone, for a wonderful Sunday morning practice. If you're heading on to Reiki Restorative, it will be next door. Meridian Energy Arts will be in here. Please remember that next week we do have a modified class schedule. 6:15, 7:15, 8:15. All options for getting up.
Will you be periscoping from a remote location?
I'll be periscoping. Yes, from a hilltop. I will be. Thank you. So each class of is independent, so you don't have to attend all of them. Although the Holy Trinity would undoubtedly like to see you. May or may not. Check online. That's actually a good question. Depends on how arisen I'm feeling.